Jeff, not here.
Here.
Rob here. Barbara.
Here,
We have minutes here.
they were sent, yes. I looked at, didn't print them out though, but they were, two of them were sent, I believe.
Do we have one or two to approve, Susie?
Two.
Two.
There's from the July 9th meeting and then the August 13th meeting.
Did anybody have any comment on them?
Not I.
No comment.
Would you care to move their approval?
I move the approval of both minutes, July and August of 2024.
Would you care to second that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed.
Thank you. It's 3 ayes and 1 absent.
Comments from the public on items not on the agenda. There's no one on screen and nobody here with us, so I presume not. I'm going to suggest that we move B to A as there's stuff we need to talk about and decisions to be made and so on, and the others are more ethereal.
Okay.
So would you guys bring us up to date on the timeline as you know it for the county and so on?
Sure. So I believe, and Susie might want to correct me, the county is going to be reviewing the art piece and agreement and all that kind of stuff at their September 24th meeting. And then once that is approved, there's just some final signatures that need to be done, and then that
I'm
agreement.
sorry, whose signatures would those be?
They would come from the Board of Parks from the county. There's an agreement document that is sent over without their signature on it because they don't sign it until it's either
Right.
approved. Or
I'm sorry, is that not the meeting that you're?
Yes, that is. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So after that meeting, that document would be signed and then the city would have a copy of it.
So we
and then-
think it's done as of September 24th and we can go ahead with plans for installation.
Yes, unless otherwise noted, then I would say that that's probably an appropriate move.
And should one of us be at that meeting?
You're welcome to join if, I don't think that they've required anybody from,
I remember when,
okay, because
Oh,
it might
good.
be on the consent
Okay,
calendar.
good.
So usually those type of items are
Yeah.
typically consent. So,
Good.
but if you're available, then by all means, you can,
when we did the Zoom part of it the last time, you
Okay.
know, when the first presentation was made.
gotcha.
We were
Okay.
just actually in attendance, that's all, for questions, and there weren't any.
Okay.
Susie, can you put that site plan up?
And I think there was some, because I spoke to Dante this morning, our public works superintendent. I know that you guys were either scheduling a site meeting with the artist and.
We did that on Sunday.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And the result of that is that.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know,
He
the good
did.
news for us is Tori is a licensed landscape architect and she was able to produce that in a
Great.
matter of hours for us.
Okay. There were a few other questions that Dante had, so we might kind of.
Should we set a meeting with him?
Yeah, I think that might be best, and it might even be better to do a site visit with him.
I would think so, because
to go over what they're needed to go through, because I know that there is a budget for the public works work of that, and depending on
separate from our budget?
correct, yeah,
Ooh, that's nice to hear.
but it was included in the art piece
was.
budget.
Okay.
There was the 25,000 for the artist, and then I think there was a $6,000
Oh.
amount for.
Mhm.
Outstanding.
But he wants to make sure that I did share this map with him. He wants to make sure that they're going to be able to work within that $6,000 budget because of how much the hourly rate for
Right.
the
I would think
machines
so,
are and
as,
stuff like that. Okay.
what we're talking about doing on the site is not elaborate.
Okay, and that's fine. And the other thing that he had a question on was in regards to the bench because I know that it mentions a new bench there. He wasn't sure if that was something that the city was going to have to provide, if the artist was going to provide.
It was my intention that they're a combination. The artist thinks that they have a redwood slab,
Okay,
which will make a bottom and a back for that bench. I sent her a bunch of Amazon links to bench legs,
okay,
and there's some attractive ones under $100.
okay.
Huh.
And I will happily put the bench together.
Okay, yeah, and just from his standpoint, it would, it'd be helpful because,
The bench will be provided.
okay,
We may request reimbursement for the cost of the legs.
okay,
If Torrey doesn't have an appropriate slab, since I have a relationship with Sturgeon's Mill, I would ask them to donate a slab, and I think I can manage that.
okay,
So the discussion that we had on site was that the existing bench, which oddly enough, the county has recently repainted.
Yeah,
Mhm.
saw that.
I don't know why,
Well, they don't know probably.
but that we might move it further down the trail where people might use it who are walking the trail.
okay,
And Tori's idea about the bench, you can see the location on the site plan, is on the other side of the Redota Trail, where she feels that the distance is appropriate to the scale of the sculpture.
Oh,
okay,
And there is a flat site there, so it would be easy to just set the bench down.
gotcha.
And
Okay.
so I suppose this site plan should be there at the 24th meeting so that they can see
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
what's in mind. Otherwise, it's just a matter of grading level to a depth that would allow for 4 inches of 3/8 minus compactable base, which which Torrey wants to be the brown kind rather than the gray kind, apparently available from Canyon Rock at $15 a yard.
Okay.
I asked her to calculate, and she came up with a little under 6 yards. I think a dump truck can carry 7. So we just bring a full dump. So what we would be looking for from Dante is, and probably he's going to ask for it to be after it rains once so that they're not dealing with soil so hard.
yeah,
And we can do that, is to grade it level and put the compacted base down. And there's a little asphalt at, would you go up, Susie? Other way. I'm sorry, down, yeah. There's a call out down there at the lower corner. There's some asphalt that leads into the lower path, only about 6 feet of it, and it's pretty funky. So we would ask the city to take that out and replace that with the compacted fill so that the whole thing is that way.
okay.
There's 3 branches that need to be cut off the oak tree. That's it.
I think that eroded path, it makes it wheelchair accessible though. Just be careful. He'll know that.
Well,
And could Tori meet with Dante when together, the two of them might
I
be a
can
good
ask,
idea?
I can ask for that, but what we would want to know in advance of this is there any reason outside of grade that compacted 3/8 minus base is not an adequate surface for ADA accessibility? Do you have any idea about that?
I don't know that it is, I think, but we talked about the accessibility as the existing sidewalk.
Right.
Well, yeah,
And, I mean, it's easy from the Redota Trail, which has ADA access to the sidewalk, and then from there into the site, because there's a swale that leads to a drain that we assume cannot be altered. And there's no way that ADA access from the Joe Redota Trail on either of those 2 paths can be made, because you would have to fill in the swale to do that.
Okay.
So
Well, you-
But,
you
but
could-
going out to the sidewalk and then into the site does not seem to be an undue burden.
It's not, no, I mean, everyone starts on the sidewalk. But
Well-
they're not coming from Santa Rosa typically on the trail. They're coming from Sebastopol. They can just come up and down the sidewalk. That seems accessibility enough.
Yeah, some people come from the other side, from the hotel exit and the coffee shop there. That wouldn't make any
Right,
difference.
but they still just can go out to the sidewalk
Yeah.
and come around to the sculpture.
It's very exciting.
Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds good. I think it'll benefit, Dante for sure, because he needs to know what is
And how
requested
should,
of him.
sure, how should we set up that appointment? Who should be in the middle of this? Zuzi.
Yeah, I think between Zuzi or I, we can send out a message to you, Dante, and Tori, to schedule something.
Okay, I'm leaving the country a week from Friday.
Okay.
We have a new granddaughter in France,
Oh,
and
nice.
there's things that need to be done.
Okay.
And
so-
how long will you be gone?
3 weeks until October 15th.
Okay.
But it won't have rained by then anyway.
Okay.
So the meeting could be after October 15th without a problem. And then, of course, we would already have the final approval from the county and
Okay.
ready to do that.
Okay.
So if you send a doodle poll, let's go for after that.
After the 15th. Okay. Then that works for me.
So that means you'll be gone for our next meeting, I believe?
Yes.
Is that the timing? Okay.
Another question that came up for us when we were on site, John, was there's a few new shrubs that we talked about that Tori's proposing. And I was curious if there's a way to imagine we can find out who the owner of that lot is
Oh,
at the corner there to see if we could potentially tap into the water for irrigating those plants. And we've talked about it with Tori as if they don't necessarily need it. If they get established this winter, if there's enough rain, it might not be a problem. But somebody planted a tree there that is dead.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something we
Oh,
could do.
She said once a month in the summer for 2 years.
And what, she's going to be out there?
Well,
tree.
it's,
It would be a lot
If we're-
easier
if we're gonna
to
plant
get
them.
irrigation on it to ensure they survive.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just thought if it's possible, certainly who the owner is known in the city or county.
Yeah, we can access that.
I mean, it's kind of a vacant lot. It's a pretty trashy
Yeah.
spot. But
I think the only thing that maybe we need to message or notify the Parks Commission is that there is a kind of the plan to add that planting on their site.
Right.
Because, this is
Right.
not a city
which
site.
is why
Right.
they should have the.
Yeah. And
the
if they
site
say no and they don't want to deal with it, then
yeah,
so be it. But yeah, I think we should at least note that in the email that goes out to them.
She was calling out Toyon because once they're established, they're very hearty and
Okay.
sturdy. I called Urban Tree Farm and they're available in 5-gallon size for $32.50 a piece.
Okay.
So we're talking $200 out of the 6,000 for that,
Nice berries, birds.
and maybe $400 for the rock.
Okay.
So I can't imagine that we wouldn't be able to be in budget.
Okay. Yeah, it's just the only thing that Dante had mentioned is just the hourly rate of the equipment and then the staff hours over there.
Sure.
Could, depending on, if he's assuming that they're grading the entire site with 2% slope and all that kind of that's.
The Sonoma County Master Gardeners have taken on the landscape at the Art Center and are doing a wonderful job. And if it's an issue, I would ask them if they would bring a volunteer crew to plant those and set
Okay.
up the irrigation, assuming we can get water.
Okay.
And we would just use a battery type of timer.
Okay.
encroachment permits. When we were there looking, there is a parking lane, then there's a space, then there's a bike lane, and then there's a space to the one lane of traffic. So regardless of how heavy a truck or equipment they bring, interrupting the lane of traffic is
Caltrans.
extremely unlikely.
Okay. That's, as long as nobody's parking there.
We would cone it
Okay.
so that nobody does. I can borrow those again from the Art Center. They have parking lot cones, or the city must. And we would just put cones out the day before and make sure nobody's there. So
Is that, so
Well,
can we do something sort of that simple and avoid the Caltrans encroachment permit?
You know, those
I would,
sandwich boards.
yeah, I would think so. I mean, because I've never experienced the Caltrans encroachment permit process, but I know from folks that have that it's not
Ugh,
the
we
quickest
don't
thing
want
in
to
the
do
world.
that.
no.
I mean, it might be another 3 years before
Well, don't they
It
have
will be
those,
we get
they have
approval.
those sandwich boards that say no parking and then they put in the date? And
Yeah,
the county has them for their trail for sure. I mean, that's
Yeah.
easy
we'll
enough.
work that out with Dante.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we definitely don't want to have Caltrans involved. And the contractor is called Two Crows. There's somebody that the Johnsons have worked with for installations and have equipment that can handle it. And it will be made clear to them that they should go and look, but they need to stay out of the traffic lane.
Okay.
But
And
they've
then-
got about 15 feet to work with.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think the other question that I'm remembering that Dante had, the pad that the piece is going to be installed on, is that going to be constructed by the artist or?
It is already in existence.
Okay.
It is a huge block of concrete
Okay.
that was poured for it, and then the sculpture has a steel base, and which is not bolted to the concrete because the whole thing weighs so much that nobody could budget without a tractor.
Okay.
And so her plan is the compacted base, set the circular and about 3 foot tall. I think I'm going to give it 6 or 7 feet in diameter, 2.5 feet tall, and solid concrete would simply sit on the compacted base
Okay.
and the sculpture on that, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Because he just wasn't sure if it was similar to the sculpture garden ones where,
Right.
you know, they
No,
did the big
there's no
pieces.
concrete work and no foundation
Okay.
in the dirt.
Okay. So it's mostly just some site prep. And
Yep. Grade it,
That's
compact
about
the
it.
shale, plant the toyons, and
okay.
done.
And then a party.
When we figure out, of course, when it will all happen, we can plan a party.
Right. And then I might be able to hook it into the dead con piece.
There was a question from council last week about kind of timing as far as when that piece will, you know, be put in.
Well, the
and-
way we're discussing it today, and this is up to Dante, but if we need to wait until it rains, then we can't set a date until it
Yeah.
rains.
Yeah, but I mean, I gave them like a rough estimate by beginning of next year.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
I would think so. In
I didn't-
January or so, February, yeah. I think they probably want to do it at least by the
Okay.
first of
What's
December.
your, Bill, Robert, sorry, what's your comment about the rain? Why can't they grade before the rain?
I just need to talk to Dante about whether they think that the soil would be too hard to,
You know, it's such limited grading. I just think,
you don't think that'll be a problem?
No, I think it's so little grading. If I just wouldn't want to wait and then it's raining not
Yeah.
just once, but for 2 months straight or something, or 3 months straight,
So
right? Like,
could we leave
if-
it up to him?
If it doesn't bother them to do it that
Really?
way, then I'm all, absolutely,
Okay.
I
let's
think
just
that's
get it
his
done.
bailiwick or whatever, yeah. Now, that might move it up pretty soon.
Yeah, because there was just some concern about.
Mm.
Well, I
Yeah.
think we'd be looking at November.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, then, yeah, that's fine. There was just concern about timing with the other art piece in town. So, yeah, that
Okay.
was one of their.
Oh, yeah, well,
All right.
Okay, and any other thoughts on?
no, thank you
That
guys
one?
for doing all that. That's great.
We, as a corollary to that, we should talk about the plaques. Did you had thoughts about that? Did you have an idea about size and design and any?
No, I didn't really have any idea. I just want them to be consistent so that there's a look that they each have that helps to identify them. That's
Sure.
just it.
There isn't one on the Michael McGinnis piece now?
No.
No.
Okay, and that's the only installed one, so we could do 3
Mhm.
at once.
Well, we could at least get the NEDCON one ready.
Right, we would have,
But if I think
we would have all 3 of them
Mhm.
made at once, and one of them
Mhm.
can be, and they'll each be installed when.
Mhm.
So what is an appropriate approach to the design, size, method of placement?
I think that's up to you guys.
Well, I mean, the ones in the sculpture garden, that could be a template for these.
I would think something bigger than
Well, bigger,
those.
yeah, but I'm the same font, the same, placement, the same kind of design. They would be bigger, of course, especially the Michael McGinnis, which has to be seen from the street. Because you
Right.
can't get at it to read it, really.
So it would need some type of a stand.
Oh, I don't know, I think it could go right on the building
Oh, okay.
and just to the lower right of the piece or something.
And the Johnson piece, it can go on the top of that concrete.
Sure. I think the only thing with the Michael McGinnis one and then potentially whatever happens with the north piece is material of the piece. You don't want it being too reflective or a certain type of metal that's going to shine back with the vehicle traffic going.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, you're thinking that Michael McGinnis's piece doesn't already violate that?
Yeah.
It's
No,
not as,
I'm not with you
It's
here.
only-
it's not
only-
as bad,
right.
but
Okay,
I'm just
well,
saying in general.
I think of a brushed metal, a matte finish or something like
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
work.
And-
And more of a pewter color or stainless steel than aluminum looking thing.
the ones that we have look fine to me. And
Yeah.
of course, the Ned Con would be way too far back. The Johnson piece would be pointing up.
Yeah.
And so it's really only consideration at this point for the McGinnis piece.
Yeah.
But they're 3 very different settings. So what we're saying,
Mhm.
well, we pick the same font, sure, that's easy, but are they really the same size?
No, they
No,
wouldn't-
and I
couldn't
don't
be.
think they're the same, like Ned's piece should probably be, sign should be something coming out of the ground that you walk
Yeah,
by,
I
you get.
don't know what the base of it seems like or where something would be mounted.
I imagine it's separate from the piece, and I would say the same for the Bruce Johnson. I don't think slapping it on top of the concrete is a very effective way to
Yeah, and it could
call it
interfere.
out. Like just set it off, even if it's by the
Mhm.
bench or something. Like just.
I agree because it sometimes interferes with the piece itself,
Mm-hmm.
and that could be very difficult.
Okay, I will do some online research for the bases that go in the ground for that type of signage. Obviously, there's people who make them because they're used in botanical gardens and things everywhere.
Well, there's the big sign at the sculpture garden that introduces the whole place. That's a pretty decent looking sign.
I guess I'm thinking of something that's more like a foot square. What are you
Possibly.
thinking of?
Well, again, like Lars was saying, it depends on for which one. I think probably that would be fine as long as the font is large enough, like what, 48?
I don't know, my mental picture is there should be consistency with the signs.
Yeah, but I think the consistency would come with the material and the font and rather than the placement. I don't think they all have to be placed the same way because Lars was saying, it's a different environment for each.
Well,
So,
there's-
some could be placed onto the brick wall of the library. That wouldn't be easy. The other, it makes sense, but the other 2 freestanding would be different.
And at the library, it could be freestanding.
It
I mean,
could.
there is planting area there.
That's true, good.
Mhm.
That
So,
would make it closer to the road then, too.
right, I think all of them could be done that way and have a consistent look, and should acknowledge that it's a commission of the
Oh, sure.
city of Sebastopol.
We could even have
I
the
think-
seal.
I think, maybe a suggestion, I know it's on some signs and whatnot, but, imprinting a QR code that people can, use their phone and
That would link to the art page.
the
fact
page for that specific
Mm.
art piece, or,
Hmm.
I'm great with that.
I don't know how technical that gets and how much more expensive the sign gets with something like
I
that.
think it's just silk screen
No, I don't
right
think
on
that's an
the
issue
thing.
anymore.
Yeah, I don't either. It's
Okay.
pretty.
I think they
Common.
acid etch them or something. So.
Mhm. But that could be, so you can keep the font on the signage to a minimum. So you,
Right.
obviously we're paying for the font and the letters on the sign. So you can kind of reduce the size to be, the name of the piece and a short little blurb. And then for more information, you can go to the QR code, and then it has, how it was brought up, like
Yeah.
just a background.
It's a nice idea.
And then if it's, if it is, if it just goes to one page that has, this is the west entrance, scroll down and here's the southern entrance.
And they'd be titled too, so they
Yeah,
identify them easily. Yeah,
and it's just a thought and consideration as
Mhm.
far as you guys going forward with that.
And there's going to be eventually a trail where NedCon's piece is, right? Like,
The Miracore Trail, yes.
yeah.
Yep.
So if we think of putting a sign out there,
mhm.
right now it's just kind of in the meadow, right? But eventually someone would walk a trail to go there.
Correct, yeah. So that trail is kind of in its close to environmental permitting component, because Mario, the city engineer, and myself are working with the Ag and Open Space, who are administering that grant, or doing that grant, and then also the environmental consultant that's working through because of the Laguna and stuff like that. So they have a construction timeline, looking into next year, because it's getting kind of too late in the season right now to start any major construction because of the weather and whatnot. So I think that, maybe once that trail is built and established, that the sign could go in after that, or if we at least have a trail location,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we can
Right.
justify the placement of that sign.
If there's a site plan, I assume, that's coming together, so the
Yeah.
sculpture is on that site plan?
I don't think it's it is called out, but I don't think it's like a definite location
Okay.
where it is. So they are aware of it though.
Yeah. Great.
I don't see on the agenda here the NedCon update. Do we have that expected today?
Always.
I know. I just wanted to make sure we didn't overlook it, just
Oh, yeah,
just for fun.
It's item G.
Oh, I don't see G. Okay.
There
Thank you.
is no.
No, there isn't.
G.
That's a joke.
You got anything for us
Just
on
add it
that?
in there.
I'll update it as part of the
Oh,
planning
good.
director's report, because I do have to leave at 2 today. So
Okay.
So they have some of the base kind of working through their installation. They're getting their encroachment permits. And then I believe their installation, they're trying to get everything wrapped up before October 15th. Is kind of October 15th is the start of no grading work through the season, as a general kind of building.
Mm.
I think it's October through March.
Right.
Is
I
no-
think it's April.
No grading?
No grading work yet.
Wow.
It's
Well, it's,
unless with permission of the local agency.
And a lot of effort for erosion control.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's
Oh.
not forbidden,
No, it's not.
But it's a lot
harder.
harder.
Yeah.
In the case of the installation of the Johnson sculpture, you think that we can work around that?
I think that they're to a point right now where if they had to do anything post October 15th, it would be very minimal. From the images that we kind of received today, as far as the spire base, all of that's pretty much handled and taken care of. So it's like it's a very large X in a way that's kind of sunk in the ground, and then the piece will be mounted on top of that.
Okay. I'm talking about grading the Redota Trail.
Oh, no.
That's not going to be an issue.
No, I don't think so.
But, and Dante could inform on that, but it's such little grading.
Correct. I mean, yeah, we're
And we're going to put compacted rock over the exposed dirt anyway.
yeah, I'm more talking about, like, a large housing project development grading of work where you're moving thousands of cubic yards of dirt around. So
Okay.
So what you're saying, John, is that also affects the NEDCON piece, the October 15th date?
potentially it could.
Okay,
There, from what I've gathered so far from the email conversations that we've been in contact with them, they're trying to get everything done before that October 15th, and they're pretty much, it seems like they're
they
on schedule.
meaning
The
comms
contractor
people? Okay, great.
for NEDCON. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's helpful.
Yeah.
That's only a month away almost.
Yeah, and going through and because they are required to have an encroachment permit for the crane and all that kind of stuff. But they're keeping it off of Caltrans right away. They're using kind of the parking lot
Oh,
that's up along Morris there to drop the piece in, so that process is shorter, because the city would administer that encroachment permit as opposed to Caltrans.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So is all this on the same page then? Is this an actual official schedule?
It's always subject to change, but
Does everybody know this, all this, now that we do? I mean, is it something that he's had a conversation with you all and his contractors, et cetera?
yeah, so the conversation has been between kind of planning, the contractor for NED, and the Public Works Engineering Department.
Okay.
So,
are we still on, are we on the planning commission report right now then?
yeah,
So do we have an anticipated date when this thing's going to be finished?
I don't.
Oh, okay. But we know that October 15th is part of it.
October 15th is just if there's any major grading site work that needs to be done, it kind of needs to be wrapped up before then, but there is
Okay.
there is preventative measures that they can use to still do grading work if needed. But if the rain doesn't come until late November, then that October 15th date is not. That's just what is typical.
Okay, but we still don't have an anticipated.
I don't have a finished date,
estimated
no.
time of arrival.
No.
Okay.
So back to A. Did anybody wander around looking at north entrance locations?
Not I.
I didn't.
Well, we had a whole discussion about it on this committee
Right.
some years ago.
Yeah, and we did go and look, and we're nowhere near having money to do it.
Right.
So
And there's-
why is it on the agenda?
Because Jeff wanted it to be.
Just to have the
Jeff's
discussion
not
again?
here.
Okay.
But the funny thing is that there's so much building going on, it might influence our choices. So,
Well,
there's
you
two
know,
more projects, right, that are on the north
Our
side.
next probable would be the Barlow Hotel.
Correct.
Oh, God.
And Kenyon Webster is a consultant to Barney Aldridge on that project. And skipping to E, he contacted me. Obviously, the cultural center is struggling financially as the city has withdrawn a good deal of its
Are you talking
support.
about this cultural center? The Sonoma County?
That one right there.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Community
Okay.
center.
I was pointing out the door and around the
Oh,
corner.
I was, okay.
The blue building over there, and asked if I thought that the Public Arts Committee might be in a position to commission something, mural, sculpture, something like that, to enhance the look of that building. And my response was, well, you should probably figure out more what it is that you want and what the practicality of that is, and talk to a couple of muralists and figure out a cost estimate, and then come and make a presentation to the committee. And that's where we left it. So there is not something really for us to discuss on E, but I bring that up because part of my response to Kenyon was talk Barney into letting the PAC have the money. Don't spend it at the hotel. So, a little.
Wow. Good luck.
We shall see. But
Uh-huh.
of course, Barney did that before, so he may already be disposed to say, I'm not going to fight with the city about art.
I'm a little confused. You're talking about the community center and then you're talking about Barney because he doesn't.
I'm really talking about Kenyon in the middle.
I know, but Barney doesn't have anything to do with the community center,
I
right?
know that.
Oh,
Kenyon has something to do with both.
both of them. Oh, I see. Okay, well, I mean, does that mean that if they were to have done their homework, so to speak, would we have any influence on what that mural looked like? That's a question is all. I mean, it's
Of
kind
course
of
we
a
would.
hypothetical
If
question.
if we were funding.
Oh, if we were
a
funding
mural.
it,
I mean,
right?
that's what he's asking for.
Okay, so we wouldn't, if we weren't funding it, we wouldn't have any influence, is that right? Is it, it's a city building though, is it not?
It's a nonprofit that the city sponsors.
Yeah, but
so-
who owns the actual building?
City.
Okay. So somebody has some influence over what the theme or the expertise or the professionalism or not of a mural or sculpture, anything would be. I mean, it's not just up to whom? To Kenyon or to
No.
the acting executive director? I'm just curious because I have a huge investment, frankly, and I think you all know that, in what these murals look like.
Mhm.
And I'm seriously, and that's a
Well, I would-
big, very visible
Right.
building.
I would think that we would have something to say about mural art on a city building.
Okay.
I'll have to double check the code on that, but I think you're right, Robert. That would make
Yeah.
sense. I know the, on private property, it's a little bit different.
I'm sure.
But as a public building with
Right.
a public,
I have to say, I'm skeptical about that because I don't think murals look good on corrugated steel buildings.
I think
Eh,
the other thing too is,
They can though.
Depending on where it's located on the building, I mean, is it gonna live up to annual flooding?
Well, all that would be part of
There's a
the,
whole lot of
yeah.
stuff. And so that's why I said, you guys have to sit down and think about what it is that you want and the practicalities of it. And certainly Kenyon knows all those considerations. And come to the public arts meeting with
Well,
something solid in mind.
Well, I-
And that's a point to insert our authority and
Yeah.
say, we don't want to just talk money with you. We want to talk about
Right,
the whole
of course.
project. Right.
but I'd like that to be actually, I don't think we've talked about it briefly, I think a few times, what our influence as this committee has on decision-making for non-funded, non-city funded art that goes on a city building. In other words, I would hope that the city council would refer to the public art committee as their experts in helping them make decisions, or actually we would, or whatever.
Yeah.
Whoever the
And-
decision makers are on a city building, that it goes to us.
Correct. In
For-
most cases, it would come as a recommendation from the PAC to the city council.
Right,
for
right.
Their approval or
Good.
denial.
That's fine. I mean, I know that's how it's done legally and all that, but I'm talking about from the people that are interested in doing a mural using us as their conduit and actually their decision makers,
Right.
or approval
And I-
makers.
I think that was the route that we were starting to go down with the water tank on.
Oh,
Main,
yeah.
That's right.
which
But maybe-
never
Well,
really
we
materialized,
already
but-
have, I know that in the ordinance says that if somebody wants to donate art
Correct.
to the city, then the Public Arts Committee needs to oversee and approve that.
Mhm.
And it's not much of an extension of that concept that if art is to be put on a city building, regardless of who pays for it, that we would have that same authority.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
we could amend that ordinance to word it that way so that in the future, nobody's
no, 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 no.
surprised.
When you say amend an
Well,
ordinance,
whatever, I know it, but
don't even say the words.
I
with
can
the
just
city
hear,
council.
frankly, somebody say, well, we don't have to include you guys because la, 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 la. Well, it would be nice if it were clear that, yes, they do, that a city building.
Well, it may be. Have you read the ordinance?
I don't remember what it says.
Well, before
Well, you
we,
just quoted it, right?
well, that part of it, but I mean, it is there on the website. And it
But
has
they
been
were-
emailed to us in the past.
The word donate is kind of nebulous.
Susie, would you please email the ordinance again?
Thank you.
It's not very long. A couple
Good.
pages.
Well, I just
to
think
read.
this is a great opportunity for us to assert one of our authorities.
I believe we are on to D.
Before we go there, I just have a segue because we talked last time about murals, locations for murals in general, and I reached out to Jen Burtz, and
Oh, thank you.
and she says I've got a few sites that I could see painted, but they're private sites, and this came up in our committee when she was here, and generally the sense was, well, we can't do anything about that. We can't fund that. We don't have purview over that. So I can talk to her in more detail about these places, but the ones she's talking about are private buildings.
Yeah, may not
So
have,
we don't really have anything to say about that.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to know where she's thinking they might look good, but yeah. Be nice if everybody used the Public Art Committee as their,
Yeah, exactly.
And I suggested that Kenyon talk to Jen
Uh-huh.
as well. Being a muralist, to give them an idea of what it costs per square foot as a generality for a muralist to do that kind of thing, because that's what she does. So D,
yeah. And thank you for both of you and Susie getting this together here for us.
do you have that timeline you can put on the screen, Susie?
I have a hard copy of it.
Can we zoom in a little? Yeah. So the oldest ones were in January of 2022, so we have already gone past the 2-year period, which sort of by default would mean January of 2026 would be the next date where we might suggest that those sculptures be removed and replaced. Is that what everybody else thinks is the case?
Is that removed and replaced? They have to be, or they
No,
would?
that would be up to us to
Okay.
ask. I mean, we would
That's the
need to have a
timing, though.
conversation
Mhm,
in mid-2025
mhm.
about whether we would like all of those to stay
Mhm.
or we would like any of them to be replaced, and then have a conversation with the artists about the ones we would like to stay and with any that we would like to leave,
Mhm.
and then design a call and all that stuff.
Right?
And so I would say that we should have a more substantive discussion, since July of 2025 is the 2-year point for the second set, that we should calendar ourselves for January of next year to discuss the first and second installations and whether we want them to stay and how we should approach that.
Sounds reasonable.
There are two that, in my mind, we could freshen out there and replace.
You talking about the football?
It does. And standing alone, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But would you put that in your notes for January? Thank you. And would you scroll up then? So we have a good deal. We have 2 years, of course, for the next set. So we don't need to give them particular consideration right now.
Are those wheels of peace, are people interacting with those, do you know? Writing their messages?
I don't know.
I doubt it. At the opening, some people did
Yeah, I saw
stuff, but
that.
I don't think that there's anything there that invites that participation or any materials to do it with. Anything else on the timeline that we should be talking about?
Well, it seems like just this last group should be considered one group, not three.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
the fifth and the fourth.
Third,
and the
fourth,
third,
and
yeah.
fifth.
Yes,
Should-
right. I think we should consider them all as a group.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's all.
I will say that I have been approached a number of times at the Art Center with compliments on how good the sculpture
No,
walk looks now.
it does, looks great.
People are very pleased with it filled out
Yeah.
and the quality of the work that's
Mhm.
there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Bravo.
I think we should be very pleased with it.
Yeah.
And the city too. And I think it probably helps the Arts Center.
Oh, no question.
It's something for people to do when they're there, in addition to the gallery and classes, I think. And I'm wondering how many people think that that's part of the Arts Center's.
Almost
Merely you.
everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad that they appreciate that.
Yeah, I know it's all good on both ends and
Great.
that, of course, influenced their generosity in letting us tag along with their event. And I hesitate to think how many people we would have had there had we not
Yeah,
tied it
true.
to their event.
That was a nice synergy.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to do more of that.
Well, I think, next time we do a new install, I'm sure they would be happy to do the same thing.
Even though it's not near their property. Oh, you mean you're talking about the sculpture garden?
I'm
Oh,
not
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about the Bruce Johnson.
Yeah, right.
No, that's too far away.
Well, yeah, it is intellectually too.
And of course, half the sculptures are on their property.
Is that, yeah, that whole, well, it's the city property.
no,
The city owns
No.
the city doesn't own Ives Park?
It does, but the dividing line between the county and the city, if you're walking along that trail, is approximately straight down that line of trees.
Oh, good.
So all the ones that are above the trees are on the county, and all the ones below the trees are on the city.
But the Arts Center itself does not own any of the property. It's either, it's
No, they
owned.
lease it from the
Right,
county.
right.
Correct.
Right. Which brings us to Art on City-owned utility boxes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this came in, I believe, as a message to the city that somebody had reached out to us, and I had, Dante was also copied on that, and then he provided the pictures as part of the packet today as a few of the utility boxes in town that we could, do artwork on. The majority of, from my understanding and just looking around town, the majority of the ones that the question probably prompted were actually Caltrans transformer boxes because they're a lot larger and whatnot, which we wouldn't have any control over.
Right.
But there are a few in town that we do have,
Right.
and those are part
That's
of
the
that.
one at Pleasant Hill.
Correct.
Do you know how many there are in the city that the city
Three.
owns?
Just
Oh,
those three, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The one in front of the fire station is probably not the
Right.
most conducive one because it's stainless steel and
Mm.
Right, and the other one is a little further up, further west on Highway 12 by that building that seems sort of half submerged.
Oh, that's that
Yeah.
old
Is
I
that
believe that one is near
chiropractor.
Burbank.
Near what?
Burbank Heights and
Burbank.
Orchards.
At Robinson. or
Yeah,
up
at
there.
Robinson.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, that's
That
right.
is that old, that
Yeah.
chiropractic.
And then, you know, I mean, his recommendation that that Dante had kind of mentioned to me and just kind of threw it out there is if you guys were to, you know, do some sort of art piece call or something like that, you know, having them have a theme of their location,
Oh,
you know, like Burbank, the one at Burbank could be Burbank related. Pleasant Hill is a little bit difficult. I mean, the closest kind of landmark is the cemetery, so I don't
Yes,
know.
that'd be
well, that'd be a
cool.
tombstone
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
with a famous person.
I mean, but yeah, you could, you know, do like a Halloween or Dia de los Muertos kind of,
Oh,
you
that,
know,
oh,
theme
that would
around
be
it.
nice.
Whatever somebody.
yeah, exactly. I
But
mean,
that-
but it would just provide a little bit more content than
That's
just a
cool.
random, you know,
Uh-huh.
flower or apple or
So,
piece or something like that.
you know, we do have money, which is not enough for this fourth entry sculpture, but more than enough to commission that.
Mhm.
And so we would need to decide how much we want to offer as a commission and put out a call for those 2 locations for submissions.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking that whoever is going to do it, there needs to be specifications for the paint.
Yeah, and that's probably something that we would need to work with Public Works.
Mhm.
I know, you know,
We would need to
Dante is
figure out,
retiring at the end of this year, so
Oh.
we would need to figure that out in the call.
correct.
But, you know, the problem with that kind of stuff is there's less than a pint of paint on that, but there might be 15 colors.
Yeah,
And so are we looking, it's a question, are we suggesting in a call that the artist have the specified paint?
Yes,
I think
The
so,
actual
too.
technical paint? you say?
yes.
Well,
most-
we can give them a variety, but like automotive paint or, you know, there are
Why
ordinary house paint.
Why
Let's
wouldn't
just-
we just give them that spec and they're just coming up with a design and color?
Yeah.
Seems like it's,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we would not buy the paint.
No, we wouldn't buy the paint. And I think what we're aiming for is a professional artist who wouldn't have too much trouble translating what we're trying to convey to them. So they're not going to get leftover house paint. You know what I mean?
That's what want us to be
So
clear.
the more we advertise this with the professional artist in mind, I think the more successful it could be.
And I think we would also, in the call, specify a duration because, and I'm just throwing a number, 5 years. Because any paint fades and gets funky. And we should say, in 5 years, we're going to put this call out again and somebody's going to paint over your work.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that's, yeah. Why not?
I mean, they're welcome to reapply too.
Yes, absolutely. But in order to keep them looking nice and fresh, at least that often, I would think, needs to be done again.
Well, it's like a sculpture, you know, I mean, it's literally a surface of something that's out in the public. So, I mean, in the weather. So again, I think we can
Yeah,
rely on some of the artists to,
Upkeep and maintenance would be something that I would include as part of their
that's in,
responsibilities.
you know, that's in our agreement with
Okay.
the sculpture garden people. Yeah, that'd be fun, huh?
I think so. So, I mean, what's anybody's sense of what that commission value should be?
$500?
I was thinking 1,000. Lars?
do I hear 1,500? No, I was thinking 500 doesn't sound like very much to, you know. for
Well,
some work.
I can't see how big they are. I don't remember.
It's not that big, I guess.
Well, it's not that it's that big,
Come up
but you
with
know,
a good design.
there's the paint and there's a lot of time.
Oh, yeah,
and-
it's the
Yeah. I
idea.
think more like 1,000.
Okay, 1,000. I would agree to 1,000.
And so
It's a
in
nice
our-
round number.
In our budget, we obviously don't want to spend all our money, and we might need money for CSG stuff in the future or whatever.
Although we were told that after the Johnson sculpture, we have $22,000. That's the number you gave us.
I think that's roughly about.
But
I have to
So-
double check, but
So we can afford to spend $2,000 on commissions for that and still have
yeah,
a substantial reserve
that's
for
great.
CSG and so on. And depending on how much money we get from the next 1%
yeah,
thing, it would, that plus whatever we got there would certainly give us
Yeah.
enough to go for the north entry.
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, definitely bearing that in mind than the other entrance. Yeah.
So John, you're saying
Yeah.
some random person asked about this?
yeah, there
or-
was a question that came in through our kind of submit a question to the city as far as does the city have a program for artists or artwork on utility boxes or
okay.
things like that in town? Because the one on the corner of Sebastopol and Highway 116 there where the bank is,
Mhm.
I believe has like a flower or there's some type of artwork on
Yeah,
there. And
yeah.
I don't know, and that's a Caltrans right away. It's, we're just across from Screaming Mimi's over
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
that
driving bank
intersection.
is-
there,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if somebody just did that on their own.
Yeah, I think it's guerrilla art.
Yeah.
And, Caltrans is never going to get around
No.
to removing it.
Correct. But where, we do have the authority to approve art and stuff like that. Those are the few locations that we have in town.
But so my question was to understand should we involve said person who put that question out there? Or
Yeah, I
we just
think-
move on from that? or
Yeah,
something?
no, I did mention that we would take it to our public arts
Okay.
committee.
Oh, good.
Because it is kind of a question for you guys to field if it is allowed, if the city would allow it. But yeah, I can dig through my email
Yeah,
and at least let them know that, the Public Arts Committee is considering this as an option and they would put out a formal call.
Yeah.
Do you want to be,
Kept in the
on some sort of like a
Yeah,
mailing list or,
subcommittee,
yeah.
volunteer.
maybe you
Committee,
could let us know
whatever,
who that
yeah.
is too, if it isn't confidential, who that
Okay.
person is.
Well, I think at this point, we should entertain a motion on the subject.
To put forward a call.
Yeah, proceed.
Anybody want to?
Sure, I'll make a motion to develop a call for artwork for city-owned utility boxes.
I think you should include the value.
The what?
That'll be in the call.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think the $1,000, if that's what you thought,
I
it should
think
be in the
I
motion.
think, I don't agree.
Okay,
It's just a motion to start
Yeah,
the
to-
process, which
Okay.
will include all the
We may change
specifications,
our
including
mind.
the cost.
okay.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I,
Okay. So would you calendar that for the next meeting? For discussion of timeline for it and methods of putting out the call and how much the remuneration is and so on?
the size maybe of the sizes?
because you mentioned
go
that you're
look.
not going to be here in October. Would
That's
you like?
fine.
Okay.
Yep. Do
Maybe-
it without me.
Or we could miss a meeting, go.
Well, no, go ahead. I mean.
You're already aware of it.
Yeah, you don't need me for that. You
And
can
it's been a
develop a
motion.
timeline, and
Yeah,
you heard my thought on the amount, but whatever the three of you come up with is
It won't
fine.
get done in one meeting anyway, I know that.
you never know.
Oh, I think
We move
I think
faster
this is
than,
simple enough to,
The other thing I wanted to say, though, this came up before, is I think we develop a call for the city-owned ones, and then we could present it to Caltrans for the
Mhm.
rest.
that's a good idea.
We don't need to be scared of Caltrans and their boxes, you know.
Yeah.
where would we find information on appropriate paint? Should we just contact Jen about that and ask her what
Jen, you said?
Verts,
Oh, maybe, yeah.
what
or-
we should specify in
Well,
that call?
Dante or
again, I
Public
think we're going,
Works.
I think we can leave it up to the artists. I mean, they're not,
No,
not
no.
the decision for it, but I think that they will, when we put out the call, we will say, you know, these, you'll have to be prepared to use paint that's industrial and withstands the elements and all that stuff. And be,
Yeah,
and if there's,
Well, inso-
That could work, but we could give some suggestions.
but insofar as Jen would have a phrase that,
Oh,
if she does,
mhm,
that we would put in the call, that would be clear about
hmm.
grades of paint and,
I think we're getting too, I think we're overthinking this part and we relying on one mural artist. And I think there are others that may have different ideas. I don't want to limit people's interest because they think we're trying to control it too much.
Mhm.
well,
And we have language from like the CSG about durability and
right,
maintenance and so on.
then I might say that in the call, I think that the artist should specify the paint that they're going to
That's
use
fine.
for our review.
Right. That's good enough rather than the other way around.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
that's good.
Because you mean, you never know. I mean, it might be glow in the dark paint that they have in mind. I don't want to limit what their creativity would be.
And that's not what I'm suggesting. Only the quality for
Well, that-
outdoor
okay.
durability of the paint is at issue.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
John has to go. No updates for us before you go?
Oh, yeah,
Have
anything new?
anything
and
else in your
cool
update?
and like 800 more houses?
Not that many. So as far as development stuff goes, the canopy, which is at the north end of town, behind the O'Reilly building, they have their site improvement plans in review right now. They're looking at submitting their building permits by the end of this month.
Mm.
Huntley Square, which is the other project along Bodega Avenue, further west from the Woodmark project. Those are 10 units. They have their site improvements. It's basically where the sidewalk ends and it goes up that strange hill.
Oh, yeah.
That site there. So part of their site improvements is providing a sidewalk and then also some street parking along Bodega Avenue.
That's by Murphy Avenue?
It's that's Healdsburg.
Oh,
So
excuse me.
the
excuse me.
Murphy and Healdsburg one
Correct.
has a commercial component.
Mm.
Not anymore.
anymore.
They revised that downstairs. It was originally approved as commercial. They came back last year and applied for a conditional use permit, and they're changing that commercial use to 2 additional apartments down there.
And
So
the
they're
one that
retrofitting
was
those.
built on that corner
Yeah.
and isn't quite done,
That's the one I'm talking about.
I'm talking about the proposal for the vacant lot next to it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So they originally came in with commercial ground floor apartments above. They went through DRB and Planning Commission preliminary review about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Both suggested to be full residential. So there's 24 units there. There's 12 townhomes on the
Wow.
back side,
Right.
the upper part.
I saw the plan.
Yeah, and then
So-
12 apartments on
So
the
the
front.
one that's already built,
Correct.
does that have a commercial component?
No.
Not anymore.
He turned it
Okay.
into apartment.
I just wanted to be sure we're talking
Yeah.
about 2 separate
Is
things.
that going to open pretty soon?
Yeah, they're
I saw the work.
Yeah,
yesterday.
they're getting some last kind of updates done in there.
Hmm.
There was some Title 24 and other things that were holding them up. So hopefully they'll have it finished here pretty soon.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they're going to ask for rent for 2 of those apartments.
Let's see what else. The Barlow Hotel is still in review with city staff. They had submitted their documents, and there's a few additional items that we need more information on. So we've reached out to them.
Will that come for a preliminary design review?
We have asked them to do a joint preliminary review with Planning Commission and design review.
Okay.
Because as part of their development agreement, they have requested to not go to design review board for that project. They've
Because they know we'd be
'Cause-
very critical.
yeah,
can they
they
do
feel
that?
that their design, it's a request that they can ask for. It doesn't mean that they're going to
Oh,
get it.
okay, good.
So we have asked them to come to some sort of preliminary review so they can get some aspect of the city's perspective on making sure that it's cohesive with the rest of the Barlow and
Right.
neighboring buildings.
Right.
Excuse me, I wonder if that's going to have any influence on the actual beginning and completion of the other hotel.
I don't think so.
You don't think that you
No.
don't think they're going to just be disappointed?
No, the main thing that was mentioned as part of the city council review when they approved their development agreement was the interest rates are at a point right now where they're too high to make the project pencil out. So they are waiting for them to come down a little bit. And
So they're
hopefully
not,
that's going to be pretty soon here.
okay, good. So, okay, good. That's good to news.
Yeah, they are, seeking out additional funding sources and whatnot. It's just, they mentioned that it's hard to provide comparables because there
Yeah,
are no other upscale hotels in Sebastopol. So
that's going to be interesting to have two hotels open almost at the same time, you know?
Yes, with 100 and how many
Right,
rooms
and
between?
no place to
140.
park and you
140.
can't get through town. That's going to be interesting.
Well, I don't think 140 rooms is going to influence that particularly, but there's certainly a question whether there's enough hotel need
That's what I mean.
to
Are you going to
support
stop
two of them.
in a city that has two major intersections and you have to wait? I don't know. It just seems weird, but I'm glad it's happening. But I mean, when you guys travel more than I do, I don't know if that's going to make any difference on the desirability of stopping here overnight. And hopefully for 2 nights, right? Isn't that the plan, that everybody stays 2 nights?
well, I mean, as far as desirability, there is a lack of, people come to
Lodging.
Sebastopol during the day and then they do what they need to do and then they leave. There's nowhere for them to stay. So
That's true.
the hope is that this will provide them
Yeah,
a place to stay. So,
You could
Plenty of
then bring
places.
some life to downtown after
Yeah.
6 o'clock.
yeah.
right.
The Burbank housing project has a nice sign up. Is
Yeah,
that
again.
moving along? Or
The
the one on across from
Rite Aid.
Safeway?
the Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah.
Sorry, is that
Yeah.
Habitat? Sorry.
Yes, that is still moving forward. I think they're just finalizing their final map, which takes a little bit of process, and that
Yeah.
needs to be signed off by City Council.
Right.
And then I think their building permits are actually ready to be issued.
Wow.
Okay.
So that
was
should be
yeah.
starting pretty soon. And then the other site on the north end on Gravenstein, where the RV Village safe parking was, we had a meeting with St. Vincent de Paul a couple months back, and they were hoping to have at least foundation permits in by October. And that's 22 units of
It's a lot
affordable
of-
housing there.
wow, man,
So,
it's going to make a big difference in this town, all the new building.
Yep.
Bless you.
So
That's
if
what
there's
we can
no
do.
other business, we'll adjourn early. Consider us adjourned, and for what it's worth, where I will be in France, the meeting would be from 10 p.m. to midnight.
Recording stopped.
So it's very likely I can join